And there's a guy named Roy Weiss. He's the dad to what's the guy's John Weiss at Southland Christian Church. Southland's a big church. He likes to multi-thousand. Roy Weiss is his dad, and he writes this. Several years ago, an elderly couple invited me to share an evening meal with them. While we were enjoying dinner after conversation in the living room, there was a frantic knock at the door. The lady of the house started toward the door. The husband was in ill health, so he didn't move out of his chair at all. He just couldn't get up. A person outside was so distraught that she literally busted into the room. The woman began to yell, "Help me, help me! Our house is on fire, and my babies are inside." It was apparent that the blaze would soon consume the home, as she expressed her need. I knew the man in the chair was not going to jump up and go into the burning house. I also could see that the lady of the house would not make it in time, and there would be little help if she was able to get there. Since I was the only one in the room, I sensed a need to defend myself and explain how sorry I was that I had no experience in rescuing people from buildings. In fact, though hard to believe, I had never received any training on this in college at all. There were many reasons why I wasn't capable of saving these children. I just hoped that someone else could respond and help. Perhaps someone out there on the street would see her pleading and see the fire and take action. Obviously, I didn't say any of this. I had no idea what to do or what the proper technique was that was required. I immediately rushed out of the house and ran down the street. The mother came with me. However, she was so distraught to be of any help, I ran into the house, found the children, and carried them out, just as the house collapsed behind me. Now listen to this. I believe that most of us would attempt to rescue someone in danger of physically burning. When we speak of evangelism or preaching the word, we're talking of literally rescuing people, sometimes individuals we know and love, from an eternal fire. We should have that same mental image when it comes to rescuing lost people. This isn't a sermon that gets preached a lot. We all know, we should share the gospel, and we should preach out, and we should share the good news of Jesus. But the reality of not doing that is never really talked about very much. And what I want to ingrain in your minds this morning is this image of Roy going into this house and saving those babies from a fire, from the house that's getting ready to. A firefighter goes into a building to save people, to put the fire out. I want you to understand that mental image, because that's the kind of passion we need to have for lost people. It's got to be there. Think about this. Somebody shared the good news with you. It could have been a Sunday school teacher. It could have been a parent or a grandparent. I look at my life, and there were lots of people that invested into Bryan Richmond. I think of my mom and dad, my grandma, coaches. I think of my third grade teacher, Dora Redden, in Sunday school. Dora Redden, I had her in third grade. I was so mean that she wouldn't let me come back to class unless my mom sat with me. Seriously, I was that bad. But she was patient, and whenever I go home, she'll come up and give me a hug, and she said, "You are proof there is a God." She would just hug me, and we would go on. But think about that. Somebody invested. Somebody shared with you. Let's go over some questions. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word evangelist? You hear the word evangelist. Do you picture like Billy Graham or Bob Russell, or maybe it's somebody on TV? They think, "Oh, they're an evangelist. They're an evangelist." But really, what is an evangelist? What does the word evangelism mean? Webster says it pretty well. Preaching the gospel. Talking about the gospel. Sharing the gospel. So when any of this word evangelist comes to mind, guess what? You're an evangelist. Share it. It's important. Who's responsible for spreading the message of Jesus? Let's read Matthew chapter 5. You have your Bibles there. Matthew chapter 5. Verses 13 to 16. Matthew chapter 5, verses 15 to 16. Who's responsible for sharing the good news? Starting with verse 13. You. You. Everybody say you. You. It's talking about you and I are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. You. The word you again. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. Evangelist, who's responsible for sharing the message of Jesus? We are. You are. We're supposed to be lights. What does it mean that we're salt of the earth and light of the world? It's basically letting people see Jesus in us. I've talked about this, and I'll talk about it many, many times. One of the coolest things that I've ever did was to take students and adults on mission trips. It's amazing what happens. And we talk, whenever I would leave, I would say, guys, you're to be lights. You're to show people Jesus. You're to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And to sit back and watch them do wonderful things. And then people are like, why would you fly halfway across the world to come and see us? Well, it's easy. Jesus. Why would you drive all the way to the hollers and boonies of Kentucky to fix my roof? Jesus. Why would you come down to Mexico? Why would you drive all the way across the border, go into some really nasty areas, and build a house for a family who's living in a cardboard box? We're lights. We are the hands and feet of Jesus. Now that we know what evangelism is, and we know that we're supposed to evangelize, and we confirm the urgency to share with the lost, the question is, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? We have this mental picture of people, of this fireman that's going in and snatching people from fire. Why don't we do that? One reason is, I think, that we're afraid. We're afraid. I'm not afraid of very much. I can't swim well. I'm sort of afraid. Well, you think as much as I like to fish that I wouldn't know how to swim, I'm sort of afraid of the water. Whenever I do swim in water that's over my waist, I usually put on a life jacket. Everybody makes fun of me. I've been to youth trips where we'd have a pool with on a convention or something, and my students would actually bring me floaties because they make fun of me. But sometimes we are afraid to share the gospel. Why is that? If something has changed us, if something has made our life better, if we understand the grace and the forgiveness of Jesus, why is it so hard to do that? Why are we afraid? Let me read you a verse, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, of love, and self-discipline. See what happens is that whenever we get to the point where we can share the gospel, we don't do that by ourselves. God helps us.